Hey everybody, it's Captain Shane, and I'm back with a new tutorial for you. This is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and this is the new PMDG 777F. Today we're going to go through a cold and dark setup of the cockpit using a checklist that I just developed on my own because I don't like the in-game options that I have right now. I don't like the center pedestal checklist that's integrated into the 777 because it doesn't give me enough detail. And this thing, I don't like this. It doesn't cover what I want it to cover. It's too complicated in some places, not complicated enough in others. And I don't know how to make my checklist go into this yet. I believe this uses XML, and I'm just not really savvy on this yet. So what I've done is I've created my own checklist on a notepad. And yeah, I'm going to run off of this on a right-hand screen. I will implement it onto the OBS feed so you can see it. If you know how to make this get into the game, by all means, let me know. So here's what we're going to do. I'll move it off to the side, and then I'm going to show it to you as an inset on the bottom right of the screen. It's going to look a little small for you, but I don't want it to take up too much screen. If you want a copy of this thing, come to my Discord. I'll give it to you. It's a work in progress. I'm going to keep updating it. If you have suggestions on how to make it better, things that should be added or removed, or know how to turn that checklist that you see in your screen onto the checklist here, if you know how to do this, by all means, tell me how, or help me with it. Anyway, let's start with the procedure. So, initial cockpit preparation checklist, cold and dark. We're going to start with the EFB. We're going to go to ground operations. We're going to go ground power request. Now over to ground service vehicles. This is as required. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the stairs because I like to simulate walking up there. Okay. Now I'm going to go over to door management, and I'm going to disarm all and open all. You can probably skip this entire step, but I like to have the doors open, simulate cargo loading, whatever you want to do. All the doors are open now. Okay? Now, we can go up to the overhead panel, and it's a little dark here, but over here is the battery switch. That's going to go on. Cabin utility on, and external power primary and secondary to on. Okay, now after you turn on the secondary external power, you need to wait 90 seconds for all of the stuff to initialize. So as we wait for the cockpit to initialize, one thing I want to go over about this checklist is that it requires you to use SimBrief to make all this thing work. This aircraft is heavily integrated into SimBrief, and if you're not using SimBrief, you're living in the 90s. So I've already done all of the flight planning in SimBrief, and we're going to need to use that information to import into the sim here, which is going to drastically make it easier for us to set things up. Okay. Anyway, get back onto our checklist. We're going to go ahead and press the fire overheat test, making sure we have our enunciations here, also making sure we have our fire warnings down here as well. Okay. Okay, now while we're waiting for this to come on, we're also going to do the indicator lights test. We're going to press and hold that and make sure all the lights come on, the overhead, and also all of our digits and everything in the cockpit. So you can see the tests are being run in progress there. Okay, now we're starting to have some of our MFDs come online. Alright, back to the overhead panel. We're going to go ahead and arm the emergency lights, turn on the ADIRU, window heat, 1, 2, 3, 4, left and right on. Nav lights, make sure they're on. Logo lights are on or as required. Wing lights on or as required. Seatbelt sign, turn that to on. Now down to the center pedestal, we're going to make sure, so this defaults to TARA. That should not be on when you're just sitting on the ramp. So verify that this is in standby, which you've just done. Again, it defaults to TARA. I think it should start in standby. Maybe PMDG can work that out. Okay, on the weather radar panel, we're going to make sure left and right is on Wixer plus T, weather plus turbulence on both. Okay? Now, here's when it's a little complicated. EIS panels. I don't know. That's what we call them on the MD-11. I don't know what they call them on this Boeing. I'm going to call it EIS for now. We need to configure all this stuff here. So here's how I do it. I do data and position, VOR left and right, VOR left and right, and then on the left, I do plan, and on the right, I leave it on map. Okay, that's how I do that initial setup of these EIS panels, assuming that's what they're called. I don't know what you Boeing people call these things. I'm an MD-11 pilot. Okay, cockpit lighting set as desired. So the cockpit lighting in this aircraft is a little complicated, I think, way more so than the MD-11. So this is like a master brightness screen, master brightness knob here, and it kind of turns on the slime lights on the overhead and in the background stuff. Then you have a glare shield, and then you have these lights you can turn down. The dome light makes it brighter or darker in here. If you want to cheat to make it super bright, you have storm lights on. And then over here on each pilot and co-pilot side, you have these knobs here. So I like to turn these down quite a bit. And then we'll go over to the co-pilot side and kind of do the same thing. We'll turn these down a bit, turn these way down. Maybe not that much. There we go. And then we also have this one back here. I like to turn those down. And then this glare shield one, we can kind of adjust that way. This one's not too dark, not too light in here. And I can turn these down further. I don't want to get down a rabbit hole with that. So, cockpit lighting as desired. Now, we're going to go ahead and do position initialization. That's the next part of the checklist. So, we're going to go down to FMC. FMC 1 is here, FMC 2 is on the right. So FMC 1, select one left line select key. Okay, then we're going to go 6 right line select key. So if you guys see these things here, where they say LSK, that's called a line select key. There's 6 line select keys on each side of the FMC. 1 to 6, 1 to 6. So if I say 6 right line select key or 6 right LSK, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the right line select key. So we're going to press 6 right for position initialization. Now we're going to press 4 right, and we're going to press 5 right. And that's going to copy the GPS position into the inertial position right there. Okay. Now we're going to enter the ICAO airport code into the 2 left line select key by typing in our current airport, KPHL. Now we're going to press 2 left line select key. Put that in right there. Now, we're going to do our weight and balance stuff, which will also feed into our routing later on. So we got the position initialization done. Let's go back over to the electronic flight bag. Now, we're going to click on this little PMG symbol here. And now we're going to click on EFB. We're going to request data from SimBrief. Now, I've already integrated this into the aircraft by the options. If you want a tutorial on how to do that, we can do that later on. This is assuming you've already set this up and you already have a SimBrief account and you've done all this. So I've already done the flight planning for this flight. I'm going to click request data from SimBrief. Now you'll notice it just populated everything for the flight we're about to do. So our call sign, the aircraft registration, 0 fuel weight, everything, the weight and balance, all that stuff was just imported into the sim by clicking this button. We got to set it up. So now we're going to go back to the FMC. And we're going to select the 6 right line select key. Okay. Now we're going to go over to the 3 left line select key and click route request. Now, the next step on my checklist says select 2 left line select key, but only verify it's a proper departure and arrival airport. So this flight that we're about to do is Philadelphia to Louisville. So I'm going to click that. Now I'm going to press the 2 left, the 5 left, which is set payload. Click that. Sim brief payload set. I'm going to come over here and do the 5 right for fuel. Sim brief block fuel set. You'll notice that our fuel just changed. So I just imported what sim brief calculated for this flight. Payload and fuel is now loaded onto the aircraft. Pretty cool, huh? That's why you gotta have sim brief. It's all integrated into this thing. I love it. All right, so weight and balance is now done for this aircraft. The fuel, the payload is all put on board and balanced out for you. Now, let's go back into doing our route. So now we're gonna go back, now we're on route programming. So we're gonna go to 6 right line select key, which is select route. All right. You'll notice it says requesting. It automatically requests the route. So that request has been sent. Now we're waiting for it to get an uplink through ACARS. There it is. Okay, now we're gonna press 4 left line select key to load that route. Awesome. So our route is now loaded. So now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and select departure and arrival. And in this case, we are taking the Philadelphia 3 departure. And the runway is, let me confirm that with Navigraph. Okay, so as you can see here, we are going to use the Philadelphia 3, and we are going to use the 9 right. So no transition for this. Uh-oh, did I lose my checklist? Hold on. There we go. Okay, select the SID, the runway and transition. That's this select SID, runway and transition here. So no transition. The SID is the Philadelphia 3 and the runway is 9 right. So that's selected. Okay. Now we're going to hit the 6 left line select key here and go to Louisville and hit arrival. Now we're going to put in the arrival that we had that we have on our flight plan. So in this case, it's going to be the level 1. So we're going to click level 1. And we're going to pick our transition. In this case, it's a Yaki. Select that. Now we're going to also select the runway we plan on landing on. So it's the ILS 17 left with the Lexi transition. Okay, that's all selected there. All right, and now we're going to press the 6 right line select key. And now we're going to go next page, and we're going to go verify that we don't have any flight plan discontinuities here. Okay, you see how we don't say any discontinuities in this thing? So our flight plan looks pretty good. Okay, so the flight plan discontinuities are cleared. Now we're going to click the legs page, and we're going to validate on this plan here that all the legs of our flight are continuous, so we don't have anything going into outer space. So we're going to click the steps button and basically go through every waypoint. And if you want a bigger view, you can just increase the range right here. There you go. And I'm going to click steps on this leg page and make sure all the legs look right. Look at all these things. Now, if it gets a little cluttered here, you can zoom back in. All right. And we're going to keep clicking step to make sure everything looks good and we don't have any breaks and stuff. Now this is vectors, so after Hannah, you're gonna get vectors. So the line just kind of goes off into outer space. The aircraft will go into heading mode at this point, and assuming that you have ATC, it's gonna vector you to Lexi. Anyway, so you go step through all these things to make sure every single waypoint looks correct until you get to the last one. If that looks good, you're gonna press the route button. Then you're gonna click 6 right activate, and then you're gonna go down here and click execute. Now you'll notice your flight plan just turned magenta. Okay. The flight plan is now set. At this point, I would switch this back over to map mode now because I'm no longer needing to look at the plan. So your route is now programmed, guys. Okay. Now we're gonna go into performance initialization. Okay, now we're going to go back to the EFB. I'm going to click the PMDG symbol here. I'm going to click Performance Tool. Then I'm going to click Airport. Select from OFP. I'm going to manually select the runway for takeoff, which is 9 right. Then I'm going to go down to Aircraft and click Import from Aircraft. I don't want OFP, I want what's actually on the aircraft right now. Okay. Then I'm going to go down to Weather and click Import Weather. Once that's done, we're going to press Calculate. And that's going to give us a lot of information that we need to remember. The flap setting, our N1 calculation, our rating, our selected flex temperature, or whatever you assume temperature, whatever you Boeing people call this thing, you know. You're going to want all this information, so keep this handy. Okay. Now we're going to go back over to the FMC, FMC1. And we're going to click... let's see here. We're going to click Initialize right here. I think I have an error in my checklist that says press 6 right line select key for performance initialization, but you can just click Initial here. So first thing we're going to do is press Accept 5 right, and it's going to load in all the stuff that SimBrief calculated for us, right? Then we're going to press the 3 left line select key twice. First thing it's going to do is populate this, then we're going to press it again. You'll notice that it now filled out the 0 fuel weight and the gross weight for us by clicking it twice. Wait about a second in between each click. Okay. Now we're going to click on thrust limit, 6 right. And we're going to select the takeoff setting that it calculated for us. So in this case, it was takeoff 2. I'm going to press takeoff 2. Then I'm going to put in the selected temperature, which I believe was 52 degrees. And you'll notice we have a takeoff thrust setting, which more or less jives with that number over there. Maybe a little bit off based on outside air temperature calculations, but your thrust limit stuff is set up. Now we're going to click on the 6 right line select key for takeoff. Now we're going to press the put in the flap setting that was recommended. Then we're going to go down here and press 3 left twice. So press it once. Press it again. Now puts in your takeoff CG and the trim for takeoff. Okay. Now we're going to press the 1 right, 2 right, and 3 right line select keys, which are going to load in the V speeds on your primary flight display on both sides. Okay. Now we're going to press VNAV, and we're going to go over until we see page 3 of 3. Now we're going to press the forecast button, which is 5 right, and we're going to press the 6 left to load in different winds that are calculated along the route. So those are loaded in. And at this point, our initial cockpit preparation checklist is complete. So we've loaded the route, the performance, takeoff stuff, weight balance, position initialization, all of that's been done. So pretty cool, huh? Now let's go ahead and continue on to the final cockpit preparation checklist. So first step, fuel quantity, check and confirm. So our flight plan calls for 48.4 thousand pounds of fuel. That's what we have on board. And if you see this number is incorrect, now it's time to fix it. So that's good. FMC, check and confirm. So how I like to run my cockpit is the pilot flying, which is going to be me in the left seat today. I want the legs page on the left because this is more or less your flight plan step by step. And if I need to go direct or do anything like that, you're going to do it from here. So the pilot who's flying the aircraft, I feel it's the way I run it. I put legs on the left. On the right, pilot not flying is going to have, at least initially, going to have your takeoff information just to keep that handy reference close. And you can also use progress, VNAV, whatever you want to display on here is fine. But I always want legs on the pilot flying side and the miscellaneous information on the pilot not flying side, co-pilot. So there you go. I'm going to keep that over there. All right, now let's go flight directors. So we're going to go flight directors left and right on. LNAV, VNAV on or as required. I like to arm these right away so I have that vertical and lateral guidance immediately after takeoff. Well, within 400 feet of takeoff, right? That doesn't mean that the autopilot is going to start flying it. It's just going to feed that information into the flight directors to help you manually fly the aircraft. So that's what I do. I like to arm them while I'm still on the ground here so I get that guidance with the flight director as soon as I'm airborne. Okay, MCP airspeed, we're going to set it to our V2 speed, in which case it's 160. So we're going to turn this down to 160. Okay, MCP heading is going to be your runway heading. In this case, it's 093, or as directed by ATC. Sometimes they're going to give you a heading to fly immediately after takeoff. You can go ahead and set that on the ground now if you want. Is it 093? It's not. Let me see. Let's take a look here. Maybe I'm wrong here. 087. Okay, well, good thing I checked it. So I'm on runway heading. So 087. Boom. That's better. Okay. MCP altitude set or as required. So if ATC gives you initial altitude, you set it. If they don't, or if you don't have any ATC on, like right now, where it's like 1 a.m. on the East Coast, I would go ahead and just set this to your initial cruising altitude. So 34,000 feet in our case. That's what's going to go in there. Or as directed by ATC. Okay, altimeters. We're going to set those as required. And the altimeter setting currently right now is 3056. That's pretty high. So I'm going to start turning this until I get 3056. So the way I have my PMDG 777 configured, when I turn this one, it does all of them for me. So it does the standby and it does the co-pilots. So altimeters are set as required. And cross-check. Let me add that in there. Cross-checked. Cool. Okay, transponder. Set and verify squawk code if you haven't already done so. So let's say our squawk code is 2234. Whatever. Set it now. Okay? So transponder is set and verified. Auto brakes. Set to rejected takeoff. Okay? Now, this is when I would do my takeoff and departure briefing. I like to do it while I'm still sitting at the ramp and the engines aren't running and I'm not trying to taxi the aircraft while I go over the takeoff and departure brief. I like to do it while my attention is focused on it. You can do yours whenever you want. A lot of times they're done during the taxi. I'm a little busy at that point and I don't have time to be looking at charts and things, but I'm trying to drive the plane, talk to ATC, do all the other stuff. So you do you, I do my brief now. So in this case, what I would do is I'd bust out my go over the departure procedures here, talk about it, talk about the runway that we're going to use, I would also discuss our planned taxi route. So in this case, where we're at right now, we would probably leave here, go down Uniform Cross, cross 9 right, make a left onto Whiskey, which turns into left onto Sierra, and then go down to Sierra 12 and depart from there. That's what I would talk about, but you do you. Okay, 8 cars and smart cars. So if you are flying for a virtual airline like I do, now's a good time to turn on your 8 cars system. I always forget to do this, so I put it in my checklist to do it, or I forget. So at this point, I would activate the flight and get that going. All right, so now the final cockpit preparation checklist is complete. So we're just about ready to go here, guys. So I think I'm going to go ahead and run through the before start pushback checklist, and then I'll call it a night. Heck, I might even start the engines for you guys too, just so we can do that. So before start pushback checklist, APU start. So we're going to go up to the overhead, press that momentarily to start, and that will start the APU. If you want to watch the APU starting, you can go over here to your center lower MFD and click status. Okay, well, that doesn't appear to be working. Why is the APU not starting? There it goes. Sometimes you have to click it twice. APU is starting now. That's going to take about a minute to get going. Okay, doors and windows, closed, latch, and arm. So I'm going to go back to my EFB now. Click on the PMDG button, ground operations, door management. Or actually, in this case, what we need to do is pull these stairs off. Now go back here. I'm going to click close all. And then I'm going to click arm all. So the doors are all armed. Okay? There you go. Now, C2 and C1 electric hydraulic pumps, I'm going to turn these on here. Then my demand hydraulic pumps are all going to go to auto. Left forward and left aft fuel pumps are all turning on. If you have fuel in the center wing fuel tanks, then you will turn these on. I don't. See what happens if you don't? It says pressure because there's no fuel in them. So that's as required. Okay, primary external power. I think we've got power coming on now. We can go ahead and turn off the primary external power and the secondary external power. At this point now, we're going to set the parking brake. So I have this on realistic parking brake, so I have to press the brake pedal and lift up on this. Parking brake is now set. Now I'm going to go back to my EFB, ground operations, tell them to remove the chocks, or actually pull the ground power, move the chocks. So chocks are out. So actually, let me correct my checklist right off the bat. We're going to do ground power first, then the chocks, because you can't pull the chocks until the ground power is done. Okay. The last thing on the checklist is to turn on the beacon light. That is the before start pushback checklist complete. Now, I know this video is getting a little long, but let's go ahead and start the engines and then I'll end it. So here, let's do our engine start. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put this onto engine. Okay. And then we're going to start engines. I like to start 2 and then 1. So here's our engine start. To start the engines, you got to make sure you have bleed air, which, as you see, we have duct pressure here. You'll also see we've got APU supplying air. Let's go ahead and start the engines then, right? So we're going to go up here to the start and go right engine start. Okay, you'll see the air configures. Air is going to the engine starter. N2 indicated. Oil pressure's good. Above 20%, you're going to go fuel on. And now we need to wait. We need to wait for the fuel flow to hit. And we're also looking for EGT and N1. Okay, fuel flow. Okay, EGT. So we got a good light. And we're going to wait for this to stabilize a bit. Okay, got a good start on engine number 2. Let's start engine 1. So we're going to go over here. Now you'll notice that it spring loads back to normal once the engine started. So go to start. We got N2. Oil pressure's indicated. 20%. Fuel on. Okay, fuel flow. EGT, good light. And make sure your EGT does not go past that little mark there. Anything past that would be considered a hot start. Okay, got a good start on engine number 1. And that's basically it, guys. Whoa, what is that? What did I do? That's cool. I don't know how to make that go away. Oh, there we go. That's cool. Apparently you can move your EFB around the cockpit. I'll have to figure out how to do that later on. Yeah, I don't know how to do that, but I don't want to get sidetracked here. Guys, we're started up now. So we've done the entire cockpit preparation checklist from cold and dark to ready to taxi. I hope you enjoyed this thing. I know it went a little bit long, but I want to teach you guys everything I know. And now, if you follow this guide, you can go fly your plane and you're prepared to do it. If you have any feedback, suggestions, recommendations, I'd love to hear it, because I've been flying this thing for 2 days now. And I don't claim to be the subject matter expert on 777s. I'm an MD-11 guy. But hope you enjoyed it. Catch you guys on the next one.